Samsung has just released its brand new Galaxy S10 Ultra tablet, and so it's only natural here that we compare it to Apple's latest tablet offering in the M4 iPad Pro. Now, recently I actually compared the iPad Pro to the S9 Ultra. Wasn't that long ago, and unfortunately, there really haven't been a ton of new changes with the S10 Ultra. So I will start with what's new here first, and then we can kind of get into my overall experience between the two. The biggest change this year is, you guessed it, the slate of Galaxy AI features. It's just making its way down the entire Samsung product lineup. Now, there are tons of AI features listed in settings, but I do want to highlight the ones that are actually kind of useful, or at least kind of fun to use. So let's start with the Note Assist features, which include the ability to get your notes auto-formatted with headers, bullet points, and paragraphs, things that are useful. You're probably going to be typing up a lot of documents or notes, and so I think this is one of the more useful features compared to some of the more fun or just senseless features that you might get with AI. Of course, you can get summaries of notes, and you can even transcribe and summarize voice recordings inside of your notes. So if you're a college student and you're listening to your lecture and you record it, you can get all of that summarized and transcribed automatically. Now, when I think of a tablet this large, again, I think of most people using this as a work or school-related tool. And so the Notes app getting these useful AI features just makes tons of sense to me. You will also be doing quite a bit of web browsing on something this large, and the summarize and translation features in the Samsung web browser are also incredibly helpful. So if you're coming across large articles online and you just don't have the time to read everything, you could just simply tap the AI icon in the browser and you'll get a handy summary in just seconds. The same applies to web pages in different languages. You can use AI to translate those web pages on the fly. Then there are more of the fun, and I think they could be kind of useful features, like being able to sketch objects onto a photo, and AI will just generate that into your image, or you can completely change the look and feel of your image with Portrait Studio. Then you have Google's Gemini built in, and it's so important to Samsung here that there's actually a dedicated key to bring up the chatbot assistant right on the first-party keyboard. It's really nice having this on your tablet, and the dedicated key from that keyboard is super helpful, and you just kind of have everything that you need at your fingertips, which is also just really nice. My favorite feature, though, is probably Google's Circle to Search. It's simple, and it's been around on some of the other devices out there, but I just really, really like it. So if you're browsing the web and you see an image that you want more information on, all you have to do is just hold down the home button and then circle it, and you'll get a Google image search basically of what you're looking at, and it's got a bunch of information on that card, and it's just really fun to use. So those are some of the AI features that I like to use, and at this moment in time, we don't have any AI features, technically, on the M4 iPad Pro, as Apple Intelligence is still only in beta in iOS 18.1 and not available to the general public. But when it is available, a lot of these features, aside from Circle to Search, will be available in some sort of way on the iPad. And so in the future, I'm going to do a full AI deep dive comparison, so please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. Now, as far as the display goes and just using the tablet in general, another new change this year is that Samsung has added an anti-glare coating to the display, and it helps block out some external lights to remove some of those distracting reflections. Now, I'm not Apple fanboying here, I promise you, because I do actually really like this tablet more so than most of the iPad offerings, but this is not nearly as good as the nano texture option that you get from Apple, and you do pay extra for that. This just comes standard, and it's a little bit more of what you would get in terms of a anti-reflective coating than obviously the standard glass, and it does a decent job at getting away some of the external light sources, but obviously when you compare it to Apple's entirely new display that's offered for it, this is not nearly as good as blocking out those reflections. Other than that, this tablet feels an awful lot like the last iteration. There aren't a ton of differences, which is fine because I do really love this tablet. It's massive, coming in at over 14 inches, and it's a powerhouse for productivity and watching content. You do have a slightly tweaked 120Hz AMOLED display, or what Samsung is calling its Dynamic AMOLED 2X display. Not entirely sure what the 2X means here. I don't think it's the dual OLED displays like the iPad. There aren't two OLED displays stacked on top of each other, which is what Apple did with the M4 iPad Pro. Either way, it's marketing, whatever. It's still a very good, bright, vivid OLED with very deep and rich blacks and great contrast. It's all of the stuff that I loved in last year's display, and I think it's one of the biggest selling points. I also think multitasking is just way better on the Galaxy S10 Ultra compared to the iPad Pro. And I'm not even thinking about DeX here, but even when you use DeX, which has been tweaked a little bit, you get that full desktop experience. But just the multitasking on the S10 Ultra, being able to have 3 to 4 different windows kind of tiled in there at any given time, it's just a better experience than Apple's Stage Manager. Also, if you just want to slip into DeX mode for a more desktop-like experience, you can do that, and you can't really do that on the iPad. And so just something to keep in mind if you're somebody who likes to have a bunch of different windows or apps open at one time. Now, I love using keyboard cases with tablets this big. And the good news is the old keyboard case with the trackpad that I use for the S9 Ultra, it still fits on the S10 Ultra, which is great. The only difference here is that I don't get that Galaxy AI key, which is kind of a bummer because I do like having it there at your fingertips. But if it means not spending another $350 for basically the exact same case with the difference being one key, I'll live. The bad news here is that this keyboard and trackpad experience is still pretty rough compared to the newly redesigned Magic Keyboard. I mean, it's not even in the same ballpark. Just in terms of the trackpad alone, the Samsung's Folio trackpad here is so bad that it just makes me want to pull my hair out every single time I use it. Now, if you couple that with the lack of being able to use this thing on your lap because of the kickstand, it's almost worth just not recommending this one and maybe just going with the keyboard that doesn't have the trackpad, which I found to be an infinitely better experience. And even though I have to touch and swipe around, I'd just rather do that than try to use the trackpad. Again, I'm not being an Apple fanboy. I think you can understand what I mean. I don't even think using this thing on your lap with the M4 iPad Pro is even that great, but it's not useful at all to have the kickstand. And so just in comparison, better experience with Apple's Magic Keyboard. So yeah, everything else is pretty much the same here. There is a different processor, but to me it feels the same unless you're gaming. And I wouldn't even say that the S10 Ultra's chip, the MediaTek, is bad at all in terms of gaming, but it's just not nearly as good as Snapdragon when it comes to these heavy, intense mobile games. But it was used specifically for these new AI features. The MediaTek one apparently ran better than the Snapdragon when it comes to AI, and since AI was a huge part of the features that came into the S10 Ultra, I think Samsung made a pretty good call because I think the processing has been very good when it comes to those AI features. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this year. I think my recommendations from the last couple times we've, talked about those tablets kind of still apply here. If you're just looking for the best tablet at whatever the lowest price point that you can get, and you want a keyboard and you want a stylus, I think it ultimately comes down to the S10 Ultra because we haven't even really talked about the S Pen. It's still pretty much the same experience, but the S Pen does come included with the tablet, whereas the Apple Pencil Pro is an additional charge, or you can get a different Apple Pencil however you want. And if you're tied to a specific ecosystem, i.e. you have an iPhone and a Mac, or you have a Galaxy S24 Ultra and a Windows laptop, well then get the Tab S10 Ultra because it's going to fit better and work better with the devices that you already own. But of course, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you think? Which one would you be thinking about picking up if you're in the market for either one? Let me know down in those comments. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.